Hi everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is a video that I've actually been wanting to make for quite a while, and it's to share my story about a retinal detachment that I had back in 2010, and to make sure that people are aware of the symptoms of a retinal detachment, and that they know what those symptoms are, so they know when they need to absolutely go get help, because a retinal detachment can indeed cause you to lose vision permanently. And so knowing what the symptoms are, it's everything. And the reason this is near and dear to my heart is because my life has been drastically impacted because of my retinal detachment. Let's be clear, I am blessed that I can still see out of that eye, but things would have certainly been different, more than likely, had I known what the symptoms were, because knowing the symptoms would have let me know that I needed to get help sooner than I got it, before the retina fully detached. So without further ado, let's talk about, I'll give you some background on my story, and then I'll talk a little bit about what the symptoms are, and then talk about what causes it and that sort of thing. So like I said, this happened back in 2010, and I'll never forget it. It was fall, my favorite time of the year, and I'm on my way to the mountains with a friend, and I remembered saying to him, I feel like somebody keeps putting something in front of my eye and taking it away. I remembered saying that more than once on that trip. Well, what I didn't know is that that's actually a sign that you're having a retinal detachment. So that's one of the signs, and that was actually the only sign that I had of the 5 main signs. So that's one of the symptoms. Another symptom that a lot of people have is just the sudden appearance of lots and lots of floaters. So most people are accustomed to having, a floater, that little black thing floating around in your eye. But if you see a posse of them, lots of floaters, those tiny little black specks, that's an indication that you need to get attention, because it could be something different, but it could indeed be a retinal that your retina is in the process of detaching. Flashes of light, that's another symptom. I actually didn't have that. It could be flashes of light in one or both eyes. Blurred vision, I did have that. So I shouldn't say that I didn't have, of the 5 symptoms, I didn't have that one. I did. I chalked my blurred vision up to, I was a contact wearer at the time, still am, but I was pretty notorious for wearing my contacts longer than I should, and so I just chalked it up to it. It really felt to me like, I had maybe worn my contacts too long and I needed to give them a break, and so I basically stopped wearing my contacts for a couple of weeks and started wearing my glasses. So that one, while it should have been a key indicator to me, it truly wasn't, because historically I'd had similar blurred vision in the past for a different reason. Another major symptom is the reduction in your side or peripheral vision. That is another major symptom. I, unfortunately, my brain had not locked in to that being a symptom for me. I can't explain why, but my brain just did not. I can honestly tell you, until the day that I went to the doctor and we realized, oh my God, your retina is not only, you're not in the middle of a detachment, your retina has fully detached, right? I did not realize that my peripheral vision was so badly impacted. And then, so basically the 5 symptoms, the first one I mentioned, which was my primary symptom, this whole curtain windshield wiper thing, sudden appearance of lots of floaters, flashes of light in one eye, the eye that's detaching, or even maybe both of your eyes, blurred vision, and then gradual reduction in your peripheral vision. So upon presenting to the doctor, when I realized, I have to say this, I'm rambling, but this is one of the reasons that I feel so passionate about posting this video, frankly, is because it may seem odd to people listening to this story. Like, how did you not know that your freaking retina had fully detached? How could you not know? And let me tell you how you cannot know. The human body is amazing, and it continues to amaze me how much, so my retina detached in this eye. And in fact, that's why this eye, I've had 3 surgeries on this eye. This eye, I was sort of notorious for having these huge eyes. This eye just won't open nearly as wide as this eye will. So I only had the detachment over here. But what is amazing to me is that when my retina was detaching, this eye compensated heavily for that. This detachment apparently took about a month. From the first time I could remember experiencing the symptom that day on the way to the mountains to when I got help was about a month. This eye, I continued to drive, I continued to work. I work at a computer all day long. That's my job. I didn't miss a beat. This eye took over and did all the heavy lifting. And that gave me a false sense of things not being nearly as bad as they were. And it wasn't until Thanksgiving of that year when I'll never forget it, I'm on I-95 coming back home from my parents' home from that weekend. And something just said, Cher, cover this eye and see what you can see out of this eye. And I saw nothing. At that point, it was a full detachment. So I'm just saying, even today, post the 2 retinal reattachment surgeries and a surgery to replace the lens in this eye certainly does not yield the same vision that this eye does. This eye still does most of the heavy lifting, and it's not until I put my hand over it that I realize just how limited this eye is. So it's so important to know that to be aware of the 5 major symptoms. And the symptoms that I have shared with you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are having a retinal detachment, but it does indeed mean that you need to seek medical assistance and get your eyes checked immediately. Because one of the things, I had a phenomenal optometrist who immediately realized upon me presenting to her office that, by the time they did all the tests on me and I landed in her chair, she already knew that my retina was detached. And it was fully detached to the point she couldn't even figure out from whence it detached. She couldn't even find the location of where it started. And so she immediately sent me over to a retinal specialist. I was in his chair within 45 minutes. He is phenomenal. And one of the things, and I know I am blessed indeed to be able to see any vision in this eye, because again, I had a full detachment. What I didn't know going into my first surgery the very next morning after I met with this retinal specialist is that there was a high chance that I would be blind in this eye. And so blessedly he kept that from me. And for several years after the detachment, I was actually able to clock 20/20 vision. Obviously with my glasses on and all that jazz and so forth, I don't have that gift anymore. But so it's just really important to know the symptoms and to know that if you have any of the 5 of them, any one of them, please go get help immediately. Just have your optometrist check you out and just make sure you're good to go. And if it's not a detachment, great. It could be something else that's far more minor. But I will tell you one of the things that my surgeon said to me after all of this was over, and he wasn't trying to rub salt into the wound. He is a wonderful man. I love him. He's truly one of the best doctors I've ever had in my life. But he said to me, had you known the symptoms and presented to me, we could have taken care of this, fixing your retina before, obviously before it fully detached. We could have done that super duper quickly as an outpatient procedure. And it would have been far less stress on your eyes and so forth. So knowing the symptoms, getting help straight away is so important. So I just encourage you to be mindful of these. So causes, being extremely nearsighted, obviously an injury. If you have advanced diabetes, you can have a retinal detachment. You can also have a retinal detachment due to a sagging vitreous. And the vitreous is a gel-like material that fills the inside of your eye. Now, what I learned through my experiences, that was actually the cause of mine. There's this, I just mentioned the word vitreous, and I remembered when they were helping to educate me about how this happened to me, because one of the first questions I asked was, why did this happen? What did I do so that I can know not to do it again? Okay, so the first thing I was told, yeah, it's because you're nearsighted. But one of the things that also happened to me because of, I guess, my nearsightedness was my posterior vitreous, also known as the PV, detached. When it detached, and normally what I was told is that your PV, your posterior vitreous, is something that normally detaches in most people if you live long enough. It's something reportedly that's quite common in the elderly, but it's not common in someone who's in their early 40s. So what ended up happening because of my nearsightedness is that my PV detached, and when it detached, was trying to take my retina with it. Because I knew the signs after I had the ordeal with this eye in 2010, in 2011, my PV detached over here, but in my quote non-surgical eye. But because I knew the signs and symptoms, I immediately was in my surgeon's chair. He was putting me through a battery of tests, and sure enough, he could actually tell because I had floaters. I did have floaters that time. He basically monitored me very regularly through a 6-week period, and when this PV detached, it did not try to take the retinal with it. So just know that. So just to sort of recap, or to finish off the information I want to share, the risk factors for this are aging. Typically, a retinal detachment is more common in people over 50, but again, I was in my 40s, early 40s in fact. If you've had a previous retinal detachment, that's a risk factor for you. In the other eye, so that's, me watching this one was very important. If you have a family history of a retinal detachment, if you have extreme nearsightedness, which is known as myopia, which I did have, if you've had a previous eye surgery, such as a cataract removal, we'll talk about that in a second. If you've had a previous severe eye injury, or any type of previous other eye disease or inflammation, all of those things are risk factors for you perhaps having a detached retina, or a retina that tries to detach. I do want to spend just a minute or two just talking about cataracts, because it mentioned that cataract removal surgery could put you at risk of having a retinal detachment. One of the things to know too is that if you have a retinal detachment, it typically will cause a cataract to build on your eye. And in fact, right after my surgery, one of the things my surgeon said to me is, as he continued my post-op checks, one of the things he said is that, we really want to be mindful of watching for cataract. And sure enough, pretty soon a cataract started to develop. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the things he shared with me is that oftentimes about 6 months to a year after your retinal reattachment surgery, people oftentimes will need to have cataract surgery because the lens becomes cloudy from, I guess, all the trauma that it's been through. I was very blessed. While I had a cataract that started developing soon after my retinal reattachment surgery, I was not plagued by it until 2016, six years later. I do hope that you have found this video helpful. If you have any of these symptoms, please go get it checked out, because even if you end up having a retinal detachment and they you're far better off if you can nip it in the bud earlier, because you have a greater chance of less loss of vision than in a situation like me where I had a full retinal detachment. I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Please like this video, and I hope to see you back. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.